Real quick before we roll this footage, Senator Mazie Hirono just sat across from Kash Patel in a Senate hearing and tried to get answers to some of the most basic and most fundamental oversight questions you can ask the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. How many people have left the FBI since January 20th? Who replaced the senior leaders who were forced out of the national security and intelligence branches? Have the counterterrorism experts who were reassigned to immigration enforcement returned to the jobs they were trained and hired to do? And what you are about to watch is Kash Patel refusing to answer virtually every single one of those questions while accusing Hirono of looking for media hits and fundraising clips and telling her to do her soliloquy in the time she has left. Watch this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, just like the rest of the federal government, there have been significant personnel changes at the FBI since President Trump took office. I want to better understand the scope of the turnover and the changes occurring at the FBI. Since January 2025, how many FBI employees have retired, resigned, been fired, or otherwise separated from employment? I need a number.
We'll get you a number.
What is the number? You don't have it?
Not off the top of my head, and I want to get you the right number.
Would it surprise you to know that it's probably in the thousands, like 5,000?
I don't think that number's accurate.
You don't know. Next question. How many special agents or analysts have left or been fired from the FBI since January 20th, 2025?
Say, we will get you the numbers, and anyone that retires is of their own volition, and anyone that is terminated at the FBI, as I've said before, is done so because they have failed to meet the standards and uphold their loyalty and oath to the Constitution.
Yeah, so you say. Next question. How many executive assistant directors, or special agents in charge have left or been fired from the FBI since January 20th, 2025?
Again, people leaving on their own accord or terminations were done by the standards set at the FBI that have been carried out
With this question,
consistently.
I'm getting to the leadership of the FBI, and you don't have that answer. Next question. Which field office, division, or directorate has lost the most personnel since January 2025? And do you have the answer to that question?
Yeah, actually, every single field office in the country, including Hawaii, has received a plus-up of FBI agents because we're pushing them out to the field.
Okay, so you're telling me that no field office, division, or directorate has lost any personnel since January 20th, 2025? That's your answer?
In Hawaii, there's been a plus-up. In every single state that I'm looking at, we have allocated a plus-up for field offices across the country so that the FBI can continuing the historic achievements it's done in these last 7 months. When you're talking about firings, you're looking for a media hit and a fundraising clip, and I'm not going to give it to you.
It doesn't matter under what basis they left. I just want to know how many have left. And I think your testimony is nobody has left. Next question.
Nope, that's not my testimony. You asked it one time. I answered it one time. You didn't get the answer you wanted for your clips.
Next question.
You keep asking it, and I told you I'd get you the numbers, but you can keep asking it.
Which field office, division, or directorate has gained the most personnel since January 2025? You noted that there have been plus-ups, so which offices have received these plus-ups?
The greatest allocation that I believe was given to California and then Florida.
Where were those offices?
California and Florida.
Thank you. Director Patel, you often refer to FBI agents as cops. All of us, Democrats and Republicans, support the police officers who keep our communities safe. But while our states, cities, counties, and towns all employ police officers to protect our communities, Congress has empowered and equipped the FBI to take on missions that local police cannot, especially taking on terrorists, hackers, and spies. I'd like to assess how well the FBI is able to handle its specialized missions under your leadership. The FBI is the nation's lead federal law enforcement agency for investigating and preventing acts of domestic and international terrorism. And yet the executive assistant directors in charge of the FBI's national security and intelligence branches were both forced out at the beginning of the year. Who replaced them in those positions?
Excellent qualified personnel to lead the mission of arresting 23,000 violent criminals this year alone. That's twice as many
the
as
people
before.
who took the places of
I'm not going to give you any names so you can attack them.
Why not?
So you can attack them. I'm not doing that. The
You're not
people
gonna
sitting
give
in
me the
those
names
seats are
of-
extremely qualified to handle the job. We
You're not
would
gonna
not
give
have
me
the
the names
results.
of personnel who
we would
should
not
be
have the
on your-
reduction
Right,
of
fine.
violence in the
Moving
state
on.
of Hawaii if we did not allocate the
Earlier
resources we
this
did.
year, FBI counterterrorist special agents and investigators were reassigned to assist with immigration enforcement. Reportedly, these counterterrorism experts were returned to the jobs they trained for in late January after Iran threatened to retaliate for our strikes on their nuclear facilities. Have those experts remained in the jobs they trained for since that time? Yes or no?
FBI agents' primary responsibility is exactly what they are assigned to do. We always work with our
So since they
interagency
returned
part.
to their positions,
If you're not
are
going to
they
let
still
me
in
answer,
those
why don't you
positions?
just do your soliloquy in the 4.5 minutes you have
I
left?
am not asking for a soliloquy. It's just a yes or no. Are those people who were returned to their jobs still on those jobs? Yes or
They
no?
never left.
What was that?
They never left their primary job. It is a surge of resources in law enforcement working with the interagency to combat violent crime and reduce
They were
violent
never-
crime in
okay, they were never
historic
reassigned to do
proportions.
That's your testimony. Okay, Director Patel, the FBI is also the lead federal agency for investigating cyber attacks and
Yes.
cyber intrusions, both by foreign nation states and by non-state hacker groups. Since President Trump's inauguration, the executive assistant director in charge of the criminal and cyber branch and the head of the FBI cyber division have both left the FBI. What are the names of the people who replace them in those positions?
The cyber branch is one of the most impressive at the FBI. 409 arrests this year, 169 convictions. That's a 42% increase from the same time last year.
It's that
So
branch,
any
Mr.
suggestion that the FBI cyber division is not operating at full capacity and better than ever before, the leadership at the branch is implementing these changes necessary to attack the cyber and ransomware infrastructure operators
You know
from Iran,
why
China,
they're
and Russia.
important? I want to know who has those positions, since the people who originally were there.
Supremely
are no longer
qualified
there.
individuals have those positions.
Are they?
Supremely qualified
Who
individuals.
are they? What are the names?
You're not getting
You don't
them.
know. Special agents who investigate cybercrime were also reassigned for immigration enforcement. Have those expert investigators returned to their duties? Yes or no?
All agents remained on their primary duties while surging to allocate resources for interagency operations to the Homeland Security task forces across this country.
So are you,
Am I what?
see, I'm not getting the yes or no answers. I get all this explanation. So there you go.
No, you get the work that
Are
the men
you
and women of the
planning
FBI are doing, and you don't want that.
Additional personnel cuts to the cyber division in the future?
The only people that will be terminated at the FBI will be those that violate their oath of office or fail to meet the high standards at the FBI.
Director Patel, the FBI is meant to be the tip of the spear in combating terrorism against the United States from both foreign and domestic sources. It's also our lead agency in fighting the hackers who target our businesses and critical infrastructure. But instead of a specialized role fighting these kinds of terrorists, hackers, and spies, you have the FBI playing the role of local police and helping with immigration enforcement. I'm going to move on to my, you've been asked some questions about changes to your hiring standard, and including college degrees and possibly the age. But, one question I had is, that you are now requiring applicants to be able to do a certain kind of pull-ups, which a lot of women cannot because of physiological differences. Are you requiring these kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring a physical program at BFTC at Quantico because FBI agents carrying guns in the field have to chase down bad guys and do really hard work. The physical fitness standards of those agents
So
are
are
being
you requiring
appropriately
these
assessed.
kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring everybody to pass the 1811 standards at BFTC. If you want to chase down a bad guy
Excuse me,
and put
the
him in
reason I
handcuffs, you
asked-
better be able to do a pull-up.
The reason I ask is that there are concerns about whether or not being able to do these kinds of harsh pull-ups is really required of FBI agents.
Doing
Anyway,
one pull-up
Mr.
is not
Patel,
harsh,
I
and there are
am
always
gravely
medical
concerned.
exemptions to that.
I am gravely concerned by the state of the FBI under your control. And in fact, you are willing to take a cut on your agency of almost $500 million. So the FBI is losing dedicated employees, decades of expertise and specialization, leading to loss to early retirements, firings, and reassignments to immigration enforcement or conducting local police work. Thousands have already left. For as long as you remain as the head of the FBI, I fear the number of departures and summary firings will continue to grow. Mr. Patel, before the vote on your nomination of this committee, I noted that your most significant qualification, this is not just something that I noted, but others, your most significant
Actually gets this place going.
qualification was your 100% loyalty to President Trump. And I fear that that continues to be the motivating factor in your position as FBI Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor, Mr. Chairman.
Director Patel, did you have
Yes.
anything you wanted to say now?
That is an entire falsehood. You can delete my 16 years of government service to multiple administrations all you want. The fact is that I was a public defender. I was a national security prosecutor. I was a House intelligence staffer. I was a deputy director of intelligence. I was a chief of staff to the Department of Defense and the Secretary of Defense. I led the counterterrorism missions for the White House. Those are just some of the jobs I held in my 16-year career. There was no loyalty then. There's no loyalty now to anything but the Constitution.
Senator Brett.
Yes. Well, before I begin, I want to thank Senator Hirono for what she said, acknowledging that there are physical differences between men and women. Talking about that women wouldn't be able to do as many pull-ups, and I think that she was making a case here that there should be different standards. There's a thing called Title IX, and this is why we continue to say we should have biological men and men's sports and biological women and women's sports. And so I look forward to utilizing that to talk to all of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Maybe they will stand with us in helping us protect women's sports. I think she made a great argument there for it. Moving on to
Welcome back to Winner's Breakdowns. I'm Winner, and if that clip left you deeply unsettled about the state of the institution that is supposed to be the tip of the spear in protecting American national security from terrorists and hackers and foreign spies, then you're feeling exactly what you should be feeling, because what Hirono documented in that exchange is not a partisan attack on the FBI. It is a series of basic and documented questions about what has happened to the agency's leadership, its personnel, its specialized capabilities, and its core mission since January 20th, 2025, and the answer she got, or more accurately, the answer she did not get, are genuinely alarming for anyone who understands what the FBI is supposed to do and how it does it. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you thought the moment that clip ended, because I read every single one, and today I want to know exactly what landed for you. Let's get into every single layer of this, because I want to start with the most fundamental question Hirono asked and the most revealing non-answer she received. She asked Patel how many FBI employees have retired, resigned, been fired, or otherwise separated from employment since January 20th, 2025. She asked for a number. She said specifically, "I need a number." And Kash Patel, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the man who runs one of the largest and most consequential law enforcement agencies in the world with tens of thousands of employees and a budget in the billions of dollars, said he does not have it off the top of his head. He'll get her a number. He does not know it right now. I want to think about what that tells us for a moment. If you run an organization of any significant size, the number of people who have left that organization over the last several months is one of the most basic operational metrics you track. It tells you about morale. It tells you about institutional stability. It tells you about whether you are retaining the experienced personnel your mission depends on. is the kind of number that any competent leader of any large organization should be able to produce immediately or within moments. The fact that the director of the FBI either does not know this number or is choosing not to share it in a public hearing is itself significant information about either his command of his own agency or his willingness to be transparent with the congressional committee that is supposed to be overseeing him. Hirono suggested the number might be in the thousands, around 5,000. Patel disputed that without providing an alternative. So his position is that her estimate is wrong, but he does not have the right number to give her. That is not a position that inspires confidence in the management of the agency or in the director's transparency with Congress. Either the number is approximately 5,000, in which case the scale of the personnel loss is extraordinary and deserves immediate serious scrutiny, or the number is significantly less than 5,000, in which case Patel should be able to provide it, and provide it quickly to correct what he says is a misleading impression. His inability or refusal to do either leaves the American public with no way to evaluate the actual scope of what has happened to FBI personnel since the administration took office. And then Hirono pressed on the leadership level specifically. The executive assistant directors in charge of the national security and intelligence branches were both forced out at the beginning of the year. These are not junior positions. These are the senior officials who lead the FBI's most critical and most specialized national security functions. The people who oversee the agency's work on terrorism and foreign intelligence and the threats that no other law enforcement agency is equipped to handle. And when Hirono asked to replace them, Patel refused to provide names. He said he would not give names so that Hirono could attack them. He said the people sitting in those seats are extremely qualified. He cited arrest statistics and conviction rates. He did everything except answer the question. And I want to be direct about why the refusal to name the replacements for senior FBI leadership positions matters. These are not positions whose occupants should be secret. The FBI is a public institution funded by American taxpayers. The senior officials who lead its most critical functions exercise enormous power over the lives of American citizens and the security of the American nation. The Senate's oversight role over the FBI exists precisely because the power those officials exercise requires public accountability and congressional scrutiny. When a director of the FBI refuses to name senior officials to the committee responsible for overseeing the agency, he is not protecting those officials from unfair attacks. He is shielding them from the legitimate accountability that comes with holding positions of public trust in a democratic government. The National Security Branch and the Intelligence Branch of the FBI are not private organizations whose leadership can be kept confidential. They are public institutions, and the people leading them should be known to the senators who fund them and oversee them. Patel's refusal is not a protective measure. It is an assertion that his agency's leadership does not need to be accountable to the Senate in the way that basic principles of democratic governance require. And then the counterterrorism reassignment question. This one deserves particular attention because the stakes involved in getting it right are not abstract. Hirono asked whether FBI counterterrorism special agents and investigators who were reassigned to assist with immigration enforcement had been returned to the counterterrorism duties they were trained for after Iran threatened to retaliate for American strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. She asked a yes or no question. Patel would not give a yes or no answer. He said agents never left their primary job. He talked about surges of resources and interagency operations and historic achievements in violent crime reduction. He did not answer whether the agents who were reassigned to immigration enforcement are currently doing counterterrorism work. This matters enormously, and I want to make sure everybody watching understands exactly why. The FBI's counterterrorism division is staffed by specialists. These are not generalists who can perform counterterrorism work one week and immigration enforcement the next with equal effectiveness. They are people who have spent years developing specific knowledge, specific networks of sources and contacts, specific technical expertise, and specific institutional relationships that make them effective at the extraordinarily difficult and specialized work of identifying and disrupting terrorist threats before they result in attacks on American soil. When you pull those people out of counterterrorism and redirect them to immigration enforcement, you're not simply moving bodies from one function to another. You are degrading a specialized capability that took years to build and that cannot be instantly restored when the political calculation about where those bodies should be deployed changes. And the context makes this even more alarming. At a moment when Iran has explicitly threatened to retaliate for American military strikes on its nuclear facilities, at a moment of elevated threat from a state actor with documented history of planning and supporting attacks on American soil, the question of whether the FBI's counterterrorism capabilities are fully deployed and fully focused on the relevant threats is not a political question. It is a life and death question. It is the question that the families of people who might be killed in a terrorist attack deserve to have answered honestly and completely by the director of the agency responsible for preventing that attack. Patel said they never left. Hirono said that testimony conflicts with public reporting about the reassignments. And the Senate and the American public are left with a dispute between the director's assertion and public reporting with no way to resolve it, because Patel will not provide the specific information that would allow independent verification of his claims. The Cyber Division questions tell a similar story. The executive assistant director in charge of the criminal and cyber branch and the head of the FBI Cyber Division have both left since January 20th. The FBI Cyber Division is responsible for investigating and preventing cyber attacks against American businesses and critical infrastructure by foreign nation-states, including China and Russia and Iran, and by criminal hacker groups. This is a mission that has never been more important or more urgent. The scale and sophistication of cyber attacks against American targets have grown dramatically in recent years, and the FBI's cyber capabilities represent one of the most important lines of defense against adversaries who are trying to penetrate American infrastructure and steal American intellectual property and disrupt American financial systems. When the leadership of that division leaves and the replacements are not identified and the director will not say who is now in charge, Hirono is right to press on it. It is not enough to cite arrest statistics and conviction rates as evidence that the division is operating effectively when the underlying question of who is leading it and whether the institutional knowledge lost when senior officials departed has been adequately replaced goes unanswered. Statistics can lag the actual state of an agency's capabilities. Arrests happening today reflect cases that were built over months or years by the people who are no longer there. The question of whether the FBI's cyber division will be as effective a year from now as it is today depends on the quality and continuity of its current leadership. And that is exactly what Hirono was trying to assess and what Patel refused to allow her to assess. And I want to address Patel's accusation directly that Hirono was looking for media hits and fundraising clips because I think it deserves a response that it did not get in the hearing. The accusation that oversight questions are really just political performance is one of the most corrosive responses an executive branch official can give to congressional scrutiny because it delegitimizes the oversight function itself. If every question about FBI personnel losses is really about fundraising clips and every question about leadership replacements is really about getting names to attack, then no congressional oversight of the FBI is legitimate, and the agency is accountable to nobody except the director and the president who appointed him. That is not how democratic government works. That is not how constitutional checks and balances work. And the contempt for congressional oversight that Patel demonstrated by making that accusation is itself evidence of exactly the kind of institutional problem that makes robust congressional oversight of the FBI so critically important. Senator Hirono was not looking for clips. She was asking questions that every member of the Appropriations and Oversight Committees of the United States Senate has a constitutional responsibility to ask. How many people have left the agency? Who is leading its most critical functions? Are the specialists who were reassigned to other duties still in place? These are not trick questions. They are not gotcha moments. They are the basic questions of institutional accountability that the Senate owes the American people. And Hirono's closing statement about Patel's defining qualification being 100% loyalty to Donald Trump deserves to be engaged with seriously rather than dismissed as partisan rhetoric. The FBI's independence from political influence is one of the most important institutional features of American democracy. It is what allows federal law enforcement to investigate powerful people and political actors without fear of political retaliation. When the director of the FBI is selected primarily on the basis of personal loyalty to the president rather than on the basis of professional qualifications and demonstrated independence, the entire foundation of that institutional independence is compromised. Patel's response, citing his 16 years of government service, is a legitimate rebuttal to the extent that his professional record is relevant to his qualifications. But professional experience and demonstrated independence are not the same thing, and the question of whether the FBI under Patel's leadership is operating independently from political considerations or as an extension of presidential political priorities is one that his refusals to answer basic oversight questions in that hearing do nothing to resolve in the direction of reassurance. Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee and on every other committee with oversight responsibility over the FBI need to keep doing exactly what Hirono did in that hearing room. Keep asking the specific questions. Keep pressing for the numbers and the names and the yes or no answers that Patel is determined not to provide. Keep building the documented record of what the oversight function is producing and what it is failing to produce because of executive branch stonewalling. Keep making the case that the American people deserve to know what is happening to the institution responsible for protecting them from terrorists and hackers and foreign spies at a moment when those threats have never been more serious or more urgent. The FBI's counterterrorism capabilities matter. Its cyber capabilities matter. Its institutional independence matters. Its ability to retain experienced specialized personnel matters. And a director who cannot or will not answer basic questions about any of those things in a public congressional hearing is a director who is not meeting the transparency obligations that come with leading one of the most powerful and most important law enforcement agencies in the world. So drop a comment and tell me what hit you hardest in that clip. Was it Patel not knowing how many FBI employees have left since January 20th? Was it the refusal to name the replacements for the heads of national security and intelligence? Was it the non-answer on whether counterterrorism experts have returned to their jobs? Was it the accusation that Hirono was looking for media hits when she was asking basic oversight questions? Was it the refusal to name cyber division leadership while claiming the division is better than ever? Was it Hirono's closing statement about loyalty to Trump versus loyalty to the Constitution? Was it Senator Britt's interesting use of Hirono's pull-up comment to make a point about women's sports? I want to hear all of it because this is exactly the substantive accountability conversation that Winners Breakdowns was built for. If you believe the FBI's counterterrorism and cyber capabilities deserve honest public accounting at a moment of elevated foreign threats, if you believe congressional oversight of federal law enforcement is not a political performance, but a constitutional obligation, and if you think Mazie Hirono asked every question that deserved to be asked in that room, even when the answers she got were non-answers designed to run out the clock, then you know exactly what to do right now. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and share this video with every American who deserves to understand what is happening to the institution that is supposed to be standing between them and the terrorists and hackers and foreign spies who want to do them harm. This has been Winners Breakdowns. Stay informed, stay engaged, hold power accountable at every level, and I will catch you in the next one.